our continuing conversation where we talk about all different types of topics, current events, everything that you would think to talk about. This is our safe space and our place where we can have our continuing conversations. And so, as always, we thank you for joining us in this continuing conversation. And please feel free to participate by typing your questions and your comments into the comment section. And so, so that you can be a part of the conversation. And you don't have to just listen to me talk. If you have any questions, you can pose those. They will pop up on the screen the same way it says here with the type questions. Or if you have any comments and you want to add that to the conversation, please feel free to do that as well. Again, so we can have our continuing conversation. All right. Well, as always, we hop into our topics. It's February. So that's February 13th, the day before Valentine's Day. We're not talking about that. It's a couple of days after the Super Bowl. We're not talking about that. It's Black History Month. We're not talking about that. What we're going to talk about is the age-old question of money. And is it easier for someone to be charitable or for someone to tithe, give their offerings, be someone who's able to give of themselves and give their money away to others if they have more or if they have less? And so that's our conversation topic today. So no current event. There's nothing, no event that's spurred it. But it's the question that goes back and forth, and sometimes easy answer because people immediately go towards, oh yeah. The Bible says it's harder for a rich man to get into heaven than to go through the eye of a needle. For a camel to go through the eye of a needle. And so people just assume, hey, it's rich. But there is some conversation there because people feel differently one way or the other. And again, so if you have any questions, add that too. All right. So, money. There's usually multiple scenarios. One of the ones is if you have a lot of money, people think, all right, people who have a lot of money, it's easier for them. Once you've paid for all your groceries, you've paid for your house and your cars, then you have money to give away to other people. You should be able to tithe and give offerings. If you don't know, tithes are 10%. Your offerings are anything on top of that. And it should be easy to do that because you have all your necessities already paid for. And so people think, all right, if I had a lot of money, it would be easy for me to be charitable. But it's percentage wise sometimes you think. A tithe is a percentage. It's 10% of the gross of what you got. And so if you are someone who makes $100,000, then 10% is $10,000. If you're someone who makes $100 million, then 10% is $10 million. And that's where we get a little bit funky or a little bit questionable because then people will take that deep breath and be like, I can give $10,000, but I'm not giving $10 million. But it's the same percentage. Basically, it's the same thing. And that's where it gets a little weird. And people think, all right, because you have money, sometimes it's harder for the person who has money, not because of the money that they have or because of what they had to do to get there. There's an assumption sometimes that people with a lot of money have to be greedy or have to do some unscrupulous things or just have to be stingy with their money. They can't give it away to get there. They have to hold on to everything that they have, and that's how they get there. And so those people, they think that wealthy people sometimes have, or people with a lot of money have, that sort of DNA. And so that they won't be able to be charitable. They won't be able to give away. Now, on the flip side, you look at someone who doesn't have a lot. If I only make $50,000 a year, or if I only make $20,000 a year, and I have to give 10%, 10% of 20 is 2,000, 10% of 50 is 5,000, then it's going to be much, much, much more difficult for me to give that money because I need that money to handle my necessities. Unlike somebody who's wealthy, they're giving out of the play money, or the discretionary funds pot when they give to organizations when they tithe. When someone who has less is giving money, they're giving out of their necessity pot. If you make $50,000 for your household, and that used to be a lot, but now because of inflation, it's not as much and it doesn't go as long. Which means basically, if you make $50,000, you're pulling in, relatively about $4,000 a month. And so after you pay for your housing, which for most people is going to be closer to $2,000 a month, whether you rent or buy. Where after you pay for gas, after you pay for food, clothing, the internet, since in your phone, since those are necessities nowadays, that $4,000 can shrink really quickly. And if you're going to be somebody who's going to tithe, that means you have to do $400 out of that $4,000. It's tough because you may not be able to knock out all your necessities and then have $400 of discretionary left over. Discretionary is that money, just for anybody who may be wondering, discretionary is that money that's left over after you've paid all your bills. We call that the discretionary fund that you can use for hanging out, you can use for whatever you want to use for, but it doesn't have to go to a utility, it doesn't have to go to a bill, it doesn't have to go to something that's mandatory that's already been put into play. Your necessities. So your discretionary is anything that doesn't have to go towards a necessity. All right, so you sit back here and you're looking at that person and you're saying, well, that it's going to be much more difficult for them to give the 10% because they're giving out of money that's closer, either it's not discretionary or it's closer, to being a necessity. And so that's generally the thought process. However, on the same side, you have people who sit back and say, well, if you don't have a lot, it's easy to be charitable because you don't have a lot. And so I'm not going to be able to carry all my bills anyway. So I might as well just go ahead and get rid of and be charitable with the money that I have and tithe and offering. If I got $5,000 worth of bills every month that I got to pay and I'm only making $4,000 a month, I'm not going to get there anyway. So I might as well make sure that I give the Lord what the Lord is required from give over to charity and help other people out because I'm not going to hit all my bills anyway. And so there's different thought processes there. I used to do this thing where I would talk to kids and I would bring in this example. This is a real life example. There was this family who they were doing very well, upper middle class, and they were doing well. And so what they decided to do, they had a nice house, they had cars, they had all that kind of stuff. And as a family, this is a family, a mother, a father, and two children. They decided that they were going to downsize their life so that they can take a large portion of money. So the proceeds from selling their house and getting rid of some of their vehicles and getting lesser expensive things and donate that money to different causes. And so that's what they decided to do. Now they didn't miss a beat in the sense of, all right, you downgraded from one house to the next. You may have had a house with a pool, and now we have a house with just a backyard. You may have had a foreign car, luxury German vehicle, and now you have a regular car, nothing fancy. You don't have leather seats, you got cloth seats now. And so what they did, they downgraded their life, but they still had everything that they wanted and everything that they needed. And so the question that would always arise when I would bring up that example is that something that you could do? Is that easy? And then, initially you say, yeah, that's nothing. I can downgrade a little bit. I'm saying, okay, now you're used to eating this particular type of food, and you're used to having this particular type of house, living in this particular type of neighborhood. And so is it going to be easy for you to give up what you already have? It's different when you don't know or you don't touch it. You can't miss what you've never had. So if you don't know what it feels like to have a car with automatic start, which I don't have and I would love to have. So you always come out to a warm vehicle when it's cold outside. You always come out to a cold vehicle when it's hot outside. If you don't know what it's like to have seats that warm up or to have AC or to have seats that automatically move and things like that, then you can't miss it. But once you've had it and you've had it for a while and then you get rid of it and get rid of those luxuries, sometimes it's a little difficult because now you have to work a little bit harder, or you have to be a little bit more uncomfortable, and then you're in a role that you're not used to being in, especially for kids. Adults, sometimes we remember how it was before we had, if we had to work our way up. And so quickly, the example goes from, all right, well, I'm cool. I don't, those people are cool. I could downgrade just like they did, to, well, you know what, maybe I wouldn't be able to go from here to here that easily. Maybe that is a little bit more difficult than I'm thinking. And then you look at the person who doesn't have any money, or has less money, not doesn't have any money. Person with less money, and you say, well, isn't it more difficult for them to give? Because they have to stretch, and they have to make sure that they can pay their bills. And it goes to the fact of, well, if you have less and you are already doing what you're supposed to do, which is you're already giving your tithes and you're already giving your offering, then you're not going to incur all of these extra costs and these extra lifestyles that you don't need, or you're not going to spend on things that you don't need because you never had the money to spend on it in the first place. And so you've already programmed yourself to be able to be obedient when it comes to the word, or obedient when it comes to tithing, or being obedient when it comes to giving to others. And so you never put yourself in a position where you have to miss these luxuries because you never went out here and splurged on these luxuries that you didn't have to have. So I'll say the word is clear. I'll point to a Bible verse, Ecclesiastes 5:10, if anybody wants to look it up. Whoever loves money never has enough. Whoever loves wealth is never satisfied with their income. This too is meaningless. And to the point of, it may not be about whether or not you have a lot or have a little, or it may not be whether it's more difficult or not. It's just, do you love money or not? And so that's where it comes into play with when you have more. I think it's easier to fall in love with the money when you have more. And it's that percentage that gets you. That 10% tithe that gets you. And so you will see wealthy people who will give a lot more money, a bigger dollar amount, but they're giving far less in the percentage because they love what they got. If you got $100,000 and you're supposed to give $10,000, giving $10,000 is not that hard. But when we start talking those bigger numbers, I need to give $1 million in tithes. I need to give $1 million to organizations. I need to give $10 million. I need to give more, not even that high. It's easier to give $10,000 when you are making 100 than it is to give 20 when you're making 200, because 20 just seems like a much bigger number. And sometimes that pressure, that love of what you got in that money, it gets tough and it gets hard to do. We have a comment. It costs to have expensive things. A Tesla is going to cost more to service than a Kia. It costs more to live in certain neighborhoods. Some can't give because their lives cost too much. Yeah, and I think that's the trap. That's the trap. As they say, more money, more problems. If y'all were here on Sunday, you would have heard that as well. But more, you hear the saying, more money, more problems. And I think not necessarily that you have problems or issues all the time, but sometimes your problems are that I brought a Tesla and now it costs more. I can't get the cheap $50 tires. I have to get $500 tires. It costs more to live in certain neighborhoods. Not only do I live in the neighborhood, but I also got to pay this exorbitant homeowners association fee, or I got to pay higher taxes, or I can't. Every time I get a contractor come out of my house, they give me that upcharge because of the fancy neighborhood that I live in. And so you really have to look at those situations, and that's what it comes down to. You get money, and then you realize that you have less with more. One of the things I'll say is, I believe that I remember when I had less money. I remember when I was making, it's making like $20,000 a year. And I thought, and this is recent, I thought about this the other day. I was making like $20,000 a year. Now, Big caveat: I didn't have any kids, but I still was married, and so I'm making $20,000, but all of my bills were paid, and I had money left over at the end of the month. Now, $20,000 ain't a lot of money. $20,000 is technically, at the time, it was technically the poverty level. I was right there because I think poverty level was like 21,000. So technically, I'm operating in poverty level, but I didn't have a lot of expenses. I didn't have a lot of things going on, and somehow, some way, I got to do everything I wanted to do. I was, generally happy, and I had money to give, and I made sure that I always came in and try to be true to paying my tithes and my offerings. Now, fast forward to now, I make way more than $20,000 a year, but I don't feel like I have as much extra income as I did back then. Now, again, I put that caveat out there. I do have some kids, but I don't feel like it. And a lot of people are in that same boat, in that same situation, where they got more money. They ended up, like the comment said, you got your lifestyle a little bit more expensive, and now you actually feel like you have less. And because of that feeling, it becomes harder and harder to give your tithes and your offerings. And it becomes harder and harder to be charitable to other people and other organizations at the right percentage level. Oh yeah, you'll still, oh yeah, I can throw $100 out here, but that's not the percentage that you're supposed to be paying. That's not the percentage that that's not your tithe. Or if you even are giving tithe, then you don't have an ability to give offering anymore. You don't have the ability to give to any organizations or any other charitable activities. And it's that pressure and that feeling, I think, that changes. So back to the question of, is it easier if you have more money to give or if you have less money to give? I think the answer is neither. Truly, it's neither. It's all about where you are perspective-wise. The Bible does say it's harder for a rich man. That's constantly put out there. But I think that's for the people who your journey to getting money wasn't a good journey. So if you got to getting money by being greedy, being selfish, being trying to hoard, then yeah, it's going to be hard for you. If you're one of those who got their money, but you were giving all along the way, like they say, you can't beat God's giving. So you're giving to God, God's giving back to you, and you're being blessed and being fortunate, and you were able to amass some money along the way. I don't think it's going to be any difference for you from when you didn't have, or when you did have, or when you do have, or when you didn't have. Wherever you are on the spectrum. So if you had a bunch of money before and you have a little bit now, I think you'll give it the same level. I think it's the journey. It's your journey and your path to getting money. Or if you were born with money, but you came from a family and a group that just that's not charitable, that didn't give, then it's going to be difficult for you. It's going to be more difficult for you. But I don't think I honestly, I don't think it's whether the amount of money that you have or don't have that makes it more difficult. I think again, it's the journey. It's how you got there and from where you came. And that's pretty much more so of what it is. But undeniably, there is pressure when you have more, because people will look at you crazy when you sit back here and you say, I gave this much to church. They'd be like, well, wait a minute. You make how much and you're tithing? That means you're giving, 10% of your income is what? That's crazy. And I think that's the little bit of pressure that you get. You got people who look at you, your family, or your friends, or anybody who knows kind of what you're doing, and then they see that you're being consistent and that you're giving. It's that eye of, you don't have to give that much, or you shouldn't give that much. And so I do think that pressure's out there. But other than that, I think it's the same. With that being said, all of us needs to remember, let's do our best, do our absolute best to tithe, to give our offerings, and again, to be charitable to others as they come along. All right. Cool. Well, that's our topic for today. I appreciate everybody who chimed in. I appreciate everybody who's watching us, whether it be live or on delay. As always, want to go and remind you that on Thursdays at 7 o'clock here on Facebook and YouTube, we have Thursday Thirst. To remind you on Sundays as well that we have a service here on YouTube and Facebook. And you can come in person if you are around the Highland Springs area, Highland Springs, Virginia. And then on Sundays at 7 o'clock as well, we have prayer. Thursday, every Tuesday at 7 o'clock, we have prayer. So you can pray with us as well. And as always, we have Impact at 8 o'clock. Two quick things. One, we have another comment. I'm going to get to that. Society tells us we need to make a certain amount of money and live a certain lifestyle. This encouragement helps society make more money. The more you think you need, the more others can make off of you. Yeah. Now that is definitely true. Society does make you think that you need a certain amount of money. It's crazy. I've come across people in my lifetime where you see people making crazy amounts of money, and you're like, why are you still working? Like, why are you still, trying to make more and more and more and more and more? Because society makes you feel like, all right, once you made it to this level, now you need to make it to this level, or you need to make this much money, you need to make this much money. It's crazy. You see people who have money, they may have, you see the one person that they got a pension, they retire, they're living a good life, they out here just chilling. They made a good amount of money, and they get that retirement check. It ain't a whole lot. It's not like they getting, big stacks of money every single month, but they live good. They're happy because they're not working. And then you see other people who make way more money than them, got the same kind of retirement plan, if not bigger, and they still out here just making money, working all the time. You're like, well, why? What are you doing? It's that societal pressure, I think. Society makes you think that you need more and you need to get all of this and get all of this. And it comes to, when are you enjoying yourself? When are you having other people enjoy this money? Are you just holding it all until you die? Like, what's the point of that? You want to just die rich so that people can say, well, that guy had a lot of money, or that lady had a lot of money. It's the weirdest thing. But yeah, I think it's the pressure from society that makes you, want to get more money. And so that great comment. I do think that's one of the things. It's the pressure from society. So the last point I wanted to put out is a reminder to everybody that tomorrow, the 14th of February, is Ash Wednesday. And so we will have Ash Wednesday service. And so here let me put so we can have our address back up. The New Bridge. So New Bridge Baptist Church will be here with us to have Ash Wednesday service, and we will have the imposition of ashes as well. But we will have a service here. Pastor Marcus Martin will be preaching, and then we'll come together for Ash Wednesday service. So if you are in the area, please feel free to join us at 6:30 for Ash Wednesday. You can't get your ashes if you're not physically here. So that's an important point to put out as well. All right. Again, thank you for all of the comments, everyone who commented, everyone who is enjoying the program. Please feel free to be here again. And like we said, all of the rest of the offers that we have out during the week as well. All right. Thank you and have a good one.